And we're back, boys and girls. Right, Valiant Warriors. We got a new episode for you, and this time it's a big one. We have senior editor Lysa Hawkins, a
Hi,
legend
everybody.
in our time, here to answer a bunch of questions and hopefully not look too down on us while we fangirl out over real quick. Okay, but I don't. We got a lot of questions, and we got to just get right into it. Just to get us going, could you kind of give us like a brief overview of, like what brought you to Valiant, why you're, you've been with the brand for a while, all that good stuff. Just let the people know a little bit about your background.
Sure. Well, I've been in comics for a very long time. I started off in the 90s in the Marvel bullpen. I was a production assistant, but I kept knocking on the door to editorials saying, let me in. It took a while, about 2.5 years, but after 4 times, I finally got into editorial, and then I was there for, like 6 or so years, 7 years at Marvel, doing mostly X-Men books, lots of X-Men books, Gen X, X-Men Unlimited, X-Force, name an X, and I worked on it. Then I went over to DC. Interestingly enough, DC started knocking on my door. And after the 4th time, it was the bat phone that rang. Hard to turn down the bat phone. So I went over to DC, and I was there for a few more years. And then I took a break from comics and kind of went on that lonely path trying to find myself. And I decided I didn't like not being in comics. So I started going around in comics again. And I started teaching comics to kids. And a couple of years ago, I got a phone call from one of the editors over at Valiant saying, "What are you up to, Lysa?" And I said, "I'm teaching comics to kids." And he said, "Well, there's a position opening up here." And I was like, yay. I wanted to throw my hat into that. And lucky for me, I got it. So I've been at Valiant now for 2 years. My anniversary was Monday, and I work on such titles as Rye, Ninjak, Bloodshot, Punk Mambo, Faith, and a lot more.
Excellent.
Dr. Mirage.
Good. All good, really. So that actually gets us right into it. Ninjak. Okay. Super excited. We've all known that it's coming. You've been kind of been rolling out all the big names, and now we know for sure that Ninjak's coming back in a new book. So what has just like the process been like behind getting ready to release it? What kind of direction do you want to take Ninjak in? Just pretty much tell us anything and everything you can without, I guess, spoilers, or feel free to.
All right, so that's big. I love Ninjak. I've always been a huge fan of him. I think he's a great character with endless potential. So when I got my hands on him, I'm like, okay, what do I do? I'm a little scared, not sure what to do at first. So I reached out to a bunch of different writers, got some ideas, and it was Jeff that really sold me his script. And once I read the script, I was like, I'm seeing something here. I'm seeing something mod. I'm seeing something very slick and sleek and 60s. I had a 60s vibe going on in my head. And I already had Javier on the sideline for this because I wanted his take on Ninjak. But when I married the two of them up, it was like, oh my God, this is a match made in heaven. It was fantastic. And they love working with each other. It's very excited. The way they're working is very old school, very old Marvel method. So it's such a collaboration. And you can see it on the pages. When the pages start coming in, it's just, I'm getting, like, my hairs on my arms are going up because I'm so excited about it. It's just, the action just jumps off the page at you. It's fantastic. So, what was it? My idea initially was, what if James Bond and Modesty Blaze had a love child? That would be Ninjak.
That's so cool.
Well, I don't think I've ever heard it put that way, but that's pretty freaking fantastic.
It's super. I mean, even from the previews that we've seen so far, you get this espionage, and I love that you mentioned the 60s vibe because you already feel that in it, and just the aesthetic of it. Are there any kind of driving influences that you felt push Ninjak towards that direction that you definitely wanted to inject into it?
No, it's all becoming very organic. This is just how it's coming out, and so I'm going to lean into it. That's how I feel. It just, if this is what it wants to be, I'm going to lean into it.
So
Okay, cool. So really, I guess, when the 60 thing, out to hit that again, Ninjak usually is a pretty big balance between like karate action, martial arts action, and like spy stuff. So would you say this one? I mean, obviously he's Ninjak. He's gonna be chopping heads and stuff. But are you guys really leaning more into like the old school, like, I don't know, like say like James Bond, the Prisoner kind of vibe for it?
He's still 100% Ninjak. He's a super spy. He's a martial artist. He's all of these things. He's a tech wizard. You're going to see all of that in play. Yes, it does have that. What's danger diabolique or something like that. It does have a little bit of that flair in it going on. Not so campy. No, it's not campy at all. But it definitely has that flavor, and it's just ripped with a lot of cliffhangers. So I mean, it's every page you're gonna go, oh my god, and you get to the next page. It's like it steamrolls right over you.
Nice.
Okay. And especially like in comparison to some of the other titles you're on, like Bloodshot, that has a totally different feel and vibe.
I'm very blessed. I feel like I'm like the genre queen. I get to have all different things. I mean, I have my punk supernatural with punk. I have my punk mambo, my horror supernatural, I should say. I have my supernatural, Vertigo-esque vibe going on with Dr. Mirage, action, pure up action adventure with Bloodshot, sci-fi epic fantasy with Rye. Yeah, I get to play with everything. It's fun.
Yeah, I really love the approach. We talked a little bit with Greg and Heather and even Emily about this approach of a really genre-influenced approach. And you can find all these different genres, and they're really taking shape at Valiant in a way that you haven't seen in the past. Mm-hmm. Is that something that kind of helped guide your influence in Ninjak and kind of distinguishing these properties from one another?
Well, definitely. I definitely want them to be distinguished. When I first came on board, I knew who Bloodshot was, but I wasn't familiar with Rye. And I was given Rye on my very first day. Thank God. Couldn't be happier. So I dove right into that world. But I kept saying, why does he look like Bloodshot? I mean, I understand they're cousins, but they look too much alike. I need them to be separate, which is why I gave Rye the beard and the long hair, because I wanted him to be on his own. Plus, I wanted him to be hot. But yes, I felt like that gave them a little bit of distance. Yet they look similar enough that you still see they are related, which is important. But I feel like each of the books, each of our characters have to have their own platform. And Ninjak is definitely one of our staple people. He's one of our biggest guns. He's got to have his own thing. And I think he does. I think Ninjak, he's one of the ones, he can be the chameleon floating throughout all the different genres of the Valiant universe.
Right.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I mean, you've had him from everything like, super spy stuff, karate stuff, karaoke. I mean, he's done pretty much everything. So that makes perfect sense. One thing that I've been wondering, so with Killers last year, kind of expanding on the Ninjak mythos, will we see any of the KI6 Fallout kind of play into Ninjak going into next year?
I love those guys. I definitely want to see them coming back. They will come back. They're probably, you won't see them in the first arc, but look for them on later arcs. Yes.
Ooh, that's so exciting. Definitely. And I think that's something that we've noticed a lot with where Valiant's going now and finding that connective tissue, but also letting these issues or letting these stories stand on their own, where you can jump into a Ninjak or you can jump into Bloodshot, and you don't have to read all of the properties to understand what's going on.
I always feel like, every comic book is somebody's comic book first. You have to be able to tell the person who you're reading about. If you pick up a Bloodshot, by the end of that book, you're going to know who Bloodshot is. You might not know all of his back history, but you're going to know who he is, his core, what he's about.
Definitely. And is that something, with a character like Ninjak or Bloodshot even? I mean, you're on major flagship characters for Valiant. Does that back history that you kind of have to learn, does that pose any difficulties for creating a new series that anybody can jump into, or is there a balancing act that you feel like you have to hit?
Well, yeah, of course there is, because you don't want to, you don't want the longtime fan to feel like you're ignoring them. You have to put enough in that you're like, oh, look, they mentioned that. That's cool. You have to do that. But that's okay, because the newbies, that's just going to go right over their head anyway. They don't need to know what goldies are, yet. They can figure it out. There's things like that. So yeah, it is a balancing act. I agree.
Nice.
But you always have to consider, this is somebody's first time reading this comic book. What are we going to do for that person? We want them to come back to.
Absolutely. I feel like that's something Valiant has always done so well. And, you can kind of jump in any book and it feels like it just gets you into the universe really well.
Well, I especially wanted to do that with Rye. Rye, for me, it is... When I approached Dan Abnett on this series, I knew almost he was my very first go. I wanted to talk to Dan about it. I'd worked with him like a lifetime ago, and so I knew he could build the world I wanted him to build. And of course, I did the right choice, because he's fantastic, and I love working with him. I'm so blessed. What was I even saying? No, I went on a track with Dan and I forgot what I was going to say. Holy moly. What was I saying?
In bringing in like new readers and setting up.
Oh, yes. Okay. Now I know. Thank you. Yes. One of the ideas with Rye was we wanted it to be almost self-contained issues. Speaking about genre, almost self-contained different genre issues. My pitch to him was, think of it as a Star Wars away team. Okay, they're going on a new planet. Each episode, each issue, they're going to be at a new planet. They're going to see something completely different. It can be whatever it is, wild and crazy, because this is what's happening in this fallen world right now. Wild and crazy stuff. You can do whatever you want, but it's got to be different and a different feel for it. So that's really what he's been creating. I mean, we had 4 and 5 was we stayed in one location a little bit longer, but for the most part, it was like each one shot was one and done. Yes, it carried the story along, but it told a story, a complete tale. Like the second issue, I don't know if you recall it. It's the one with the house.
Yeah,
that haunts me. It still haunts me to this day. But that was downright creepy. It was completely different from your first issue, which was more like, Road Warrior meets, Lone Wolf and Cub. Very different. There were different tastes, but it was still telling the same story.
So when you were going into that, the 4000 AD stuff, it's been dabbled in, and it's been kind of built up in New Japan and so on. But you're creating, like you said, like an entire world. So is that something that you just kind of went in just guns blazing, fully confident, or was it like, all right, if this doesn't land, like how like what was the vibe going into it? Because that is a pretty big undertaking.
It was a big undertaking. It began with when I got my job, the first day when I was handed Rye, I was told that there was going to be an event that was going to be building into this new relaunch of Rye, which is Fallen World. So I spoke with the editor of Fallen World, and we created basically the backbones of what Fallen World was going to be. And then he was having a hard time with a writer on this. So I said, I had already hired Dan, and Dan had already written a couple of issues of Rye for me. And I said, how don't we just get Dan to do Fallen World? That way he controls the whole world he's creating. He knows, he knows it. So Dan came in and did that. And so, yeah, he really has ownership of this world. And as long as Valiant will allow us, we're going to play in that world and just push it to the biggest extreme ever. So.
Yeah, definitely. Right. We actually got a chance to talk with Dan Abnett about kind of that world. And it was so cool to hear his take on, jumping in with Rye and then having the opportunity to do Fallen World and build that backstory and kind of make things work together and click. And it's really cool to see, hear that from an editor's perspective and how that world takes shape. So, and you said as long as Valiant will let you, as long as Valiant will let you, is that something that you take into account for when you're doing these properties? And how much freedom does Valiant give you when developing, such a world like this?
It depends. I have to be honest. It depends on the property we're talking about. With Rye, they gave me a lot of freedom. Nobody said anything. I was able to do for the most with the story itself. Nobody's been questioning, Dan and I. So we're just running. We're just gonna run with it.
What about something like Ninjak with this new series coming out?
Oh, Ninjak is because he's a bigger character.
Yeah.
In the Valiant world, it takes they look closer at it. So like this, a lot of not the. It had a few more what's the word I'm looking for, eyes on it before it got approved.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But now that it's up and running, again, we're just running with it.
So that's gotta really just be kind of motivating to take like a new direction. And then, like you said, you had so many eyes on it, and they're all like, okay, yes. So that's gonna be really exciting going forward. Is there? Let's see. How do I word this without basically begging for spoilers?
Ken's always trying to get spoiled.
Yeah,
I'm not allowed to speak.
But so, like, going forward, is Ninjak gonna be more self-contained, or? Well, I guess I'll put it the same way to you. I put it to Greg. In the last year or two, a lot of the big guns have been being slowly trickled back in, and since Valiant usually doesn't do anything without a reason. Is there maybe a reason, or is there like a big threat that might require having Bloodshot and Ninjak?
I can't talk to you about any of that. What are you trying?
Okay. All right. Okay. So I guess another way to put that is going forward with Ninjak. Is it going to be? Would you say it's more self-contained to kind of just reintroduce Ninjak to the Valiant universe, or are we going to see him popping up like wildfire? Maybe Bloodshot or XO.
Well, you're not going to see him popping up anywhere until he pops up in his own book.
Okay.
That's where you're going to see him pop up. After that, well, that's anybody's game. We'll see.
Ooh.
And that's a very interesting timeline because Ninjak is 2021 in the release date that we know so far. So there's a lot of ground to cover still before we get there. Is that something that you've kind of taken into account for the release schedule, and does the story work around that, like what we're seeing now?
I mean, I honestly, Ninjak was supposed to come out in the fall, but because of the pandemic, everything got booted back until just delayed. So it which is why it was coming out. We talked about it in Free Comic Book Day, which was printed in spring, because we thought it was coming out in the fall. Which is all good for me, because it just means I get more issues in the can before it comes out to print. But when let me see. When Rye #1 came to print, I had all 10 issues scripted, and almost, 8 of them done.
Wow.
About.
Really now?
So,
That's an interesting timeline. I mean, I know everything has caused a pretty large upheaval. Have you noticed anything directly impacting your daily operations with the COVID pandemic?
Oh, well, it's just a new world we have to deal with. I work from home now. See, it's my home. There are always new trials to overcome, but it's not terrible, and thank goodness I can do it. I miss my coworkers, miss seeing my friends.
Valiant seems so close with everybody. I think that translates in the actual material too, because it's so welcoming.
I think so. I absolutely agree. We're such a small company. We're a family. So for good and ill, but we're definitely a family. And yes, and we're all very passionate about our job, and that does come through.
Absolutely.
Good stuff. So like you said, being like one big family, how involved is say for example with you doing Ninjak, right? Is it more like you get freedom to kind of just do what you want, and then you kind of bring it to the table after the fact, or is it more of a
not with Ninjak?
This is the ways we're gonna split up kind of thing.
I'm not sure I'm following exactly. Well, let me explain. Basically, with something like a Ninjak, it goes through a committee, and they have to make sure that they approve of the artist, they approve of the writer, that they think that this is going to be our best foot forward type of thing. Once that's approved, I'm good to go. I don't have to go back and then we're all clear. Something like Punk Mambo, nobody looked at twice. It's like, oh, Lysa, you take that. And I was like, yeah. So it depends on the character.
Awesome. And I think the artist on Ninjak is such a fresh new perspective on the character. And we have a little bit of a reveal here in this show that we can do, but I wanted to get your thoughts on this artist and what they bring to the table and kind of how this new perspective of Ninjak is set to hit the ground running.
Well, I've never seen we haven't had a Ninjak that looks like this, and it's wildly different. And it's but like I said before, it's 100% Ninjak. And the moment you read it, you'll be like, yeah, this is Ninjak. It just is. I'm really hoping that people give it a chance. I know that there are some old fans that are I shouldn't say old fans. I should say some fans that are very used to the old style of Ninjak, which is totally cool. I completely understand, I'm always hearkened back to the late great Denny O'Neil. I don't know if you guys with Denny. Denny wrote one of the things, an article years ago that I thought was brilliant. One of the many things he wrote was brilliant. This was about knowing about knowing your Batman or choosing your own Batman. Who's your Batman? Because there's so many different Batmans throughout the years, so many different ones. And, who do you like? Do you like the campy one? Do you like the goofy one? Do you like the dark one? Do you like the old one? There's just the long pointed eared one. There's a ton of different Batmans. And every one of them has somebody's favorite. This is my Batman. Myself included. I have my own personal Batman. And when somebody else is doing a Batman that's not my Batman, I'm okay. I'm okay with it because I know my Batman will show back up. And I know it doesn't take away from my Batman because I know my Batman's the best. But it's the same thing as Ninjak. If this isn't your Ninjak, I say, please give it a try. But if it's still not working for you, hang out. Your Ninjak's going to be back. Don't worry. He's not going anywhere. And that's it. I love Javier. I love Javier's style. I think what he brings to the table is going to be something like a breath of fresh air. I think it's going to be something different. Is it a style we're going to keep forever? Of course not. This is married to the story. It's being written. It is the right style for this story, and that's a job of the editor. The editor finds the right people for the project.
Yeah. And so without a little further ado, we have an exclusive reveal of a Ninjak panel for the new series coming out, and it is a new style. So I want to see if we throw it up here and kind of get your takes on it and what it brings to the table. And here it is. This is a close-up of Ninjak. We see I love the heavy blacks in it. I mean, this is really standing out.
It's simple, but super menacing at the same time.
It is. It is. I mean, that panel, it tells you everything you need to know. This guy's badass. You don't want to run into him. He's going to kill you. I think it's menacing, and I love his line work. Javier's line work is just amazing. I can't say it enough that how the pages just come to life. More so than most books I work on. It's just they just come off the page.
Yeah, I like it because just his general style, because it has a very bizarre layer where it's simple, but at the same time I'm all right, if I blink while I'm looking at this panel, he might punch me in the face. There's it's simple, but it still has a way of just properly of emoting clear purpose. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. I feel like it's gonna be pretty sweet, in nice spy thrillers, especially when you I can't get over when you drop that 60s thing, because I mean, I don't know if a lot of you, maybe it's just me because I like old movies and stuff, but just knowing that was pretty much the heyday for good, crazy spy movies and stuff. If this is even a fraction of that, it's
it is. It's all that in a bag of
roller
chips.
coaster.
Oh, so excited for that. Yeah. Right.
No, it's one of those ones when I read this script, I was like, oh my gosh, and I did a little dance. It was like, yes, this is great.
And speaking of the script, bringing in Jeff Parker, well, how was that? Was that just kind of like a more natural thing, or?
Yeah, I call it kismet. It was just very. I reached out to him. I was like on a lark. So I hope you're available. And he was like, "Yeah, this sounds like a great project. It sounds like something I'd love to do." And I was like, "Yay!" Yeah. And so it's just like, I said, the two of them. It's a match made in heaven.
Perfect. And so, what about it? What about Jeff Parker in particular that drew you to him? Like you were like, "This is the guy."
Well, he lends himself to spy material, so I thought he might have a handle on it, so.
Yeah, I mean, no two ways about that. I mean, his work speaks for itself there.
Then he liked my thoughts on it, I mean, he liked the idea of the modesty blaze and James Bond, he was digging that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that it's just really exciting because we're seeing that with a lot of different characters right now. And this new, release of Ninjak, and there's a lot of teasing going on. I've noticed that a lot of these teases, even this panel that we have here to reveal, it isn't colored. We're seeing a lot of heavy emphasis on the pencil work or the line work, and I think that's something that's interesting in the promotions of Ninjak. So can you talk a little bit about that deliberate choice and, why we haven't seen, reveals of a finished script, finished illustrated and colored page?
Because it's not time yet.
Ooh.
It's just not time yet. I wish I could show it to you. Have we lost someone?
Oh, Ken has lost. Looks like he has to jump back in. He may have frozen. He should be right back.
Okay. But yes, I can't say anymore. Let me put it that way.
I love it. No, that's great because I really actually enjoy the way that this is being presented. Hi, Ken. We have you back.
All right. Set that up. I think crashed. All right.
No, I really enjoy how this is being presented because it does get you that mod retro vibe that ties into the 60s espionage aesthetic that we're already seeing, come to life in this series. And, I think a lot of people have seen Ninjak as, either James Bond or just a ninja. And I feel like we're getting a closer marriage of the two distinctive personalities that kind of make up Ninjak as a character. And that influence is coming to life in the artwork. So it's kind of exciting just to see that really coming to life. But has it been so easy to do it on other properties outside of Ninjak like that? It feels like the creative team falls into place and the aesthetic falls into place. Have there been any difficulties in developing your IPs like that?
Well, sure. I've been very blessed. Some things just, some teams just came right into place. I mean, like Ninjak came into place pretty quickly. Rye was perfect. But sometimes, you have to make things, gee, I can't really talk too much about that either. I have a new IP that I can't mention anything else about that's coming out at some point. And the writer, who I'm not going to tell you his name either, but I can tell you this much. He was a novelist. And he came in not as a comic book writer, but just a comic book fan. But he had this idea, this little germ of an idea that I thought was brilliant. And I said, well, flesh out that idea. And he did. And everybody went over them, which is wild about it, and thought it was fantastic. But then I said, okay, great. We got it approved. He gave me the first script, and it was terrible. It was his pacing was completely off. The idea was there, but he didn't know how to sell it because he was used to writing prose. And so it's like, we got to learn how to comic book pace here. And so it was like excruciatingly painful. He had to kill all his darlings. And I mean, he went back to that script like 5 times, but on the 6th time, it was perfect. And then ever since then, every issue he sends, he hands to me is like, well, you did it. congratulations, it's perfect. Yeah. So
That's super cool.
sometimes you just have to teach people. You know?
Absolutely. And the editor process is something I kind of wanted to dig into with you, because we talked to Heather a little bit, who also has experience with Marvel and stuff like that, has been around the industry and has some experience. So can you talk a little bit about the atmosphere and working environment at Valiant compared to some of the other companies that fans are used to, and what it means to be an editor in these properties?
Oh, well, it means everything to me. I'm very blessed. I'm very lucky. I'm a comic book editor through and through. They're very different. The big two are very, very different. Marvel, at the time I was at Marvel, it was a bit of chaos, wonderful chaos, good trouble, as John would put it. It was really creative, but we were always like worried that the floor was going to fall out from beneath us, because we were going through all of those different bankruptcies and layoffs, and it was a tough time, but very creative. And Marvel gave me pretty much free range to be the editor I wanted to be. DC was much more corporate, much more controlling on things. I was still allowed to do things, but there were more, more, I had more of a leash on me. Very, very different with Valiant. Valiant reminds me more of old Marvel, because it has a feeling of a family atmosphere there. They're very for the most part, I am allowed to fly, but they're with bigger characters. They want to know what's going on, and rightfully so. My day consists of reading. I try to break up my day of reading scripts in the mornings, perhaps, and then doing checking up on my freelancers and where my interior is at in the afternoon, that type of thing. It's a lot of spinning plates. That's what I call it, spinning plates, because you're always jumping to one thing after, one thing to another thing to another thing. And it's just whatever's hot for the moment, you have to jump on. Thankfully, I'm so far ahead. I'm really efficient with my job. So I'm really usually ahead. So my freelancers love me, because I don't normally have to say, I need this now. I usually say, you have a couple of months, so and that's good,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think that experience at Marvel and DC helps to kind of shape what we as consumers and readers expect from comics too, because when you dive into Valiant, it has such a polished feel that I always joke about when Vin Diesel introduced the new Bloodshot movie. He was in a theater and he said, I'm here representing one of the big three, and he included Valiant in that. And I just really love that, because it has such a great example for what Valiant brings to the industry and what it brings to the table, And
well, we are one of the big three, even though maybe not as far as our titles, or even our clout, but we are as far as our universe. I mean, outside of Marvel and DC, we have the biggest superhero universe.
Yeah, absolutely. And it looks like we have finally gotten Ken back after some technical difficulties. We're just talking about
Marvel and DC.
Yeah, just talking about Lisa's experience with Marvel and DC and kind of what that shapes the table with Valiant and editing. And we had spoken with quite a few Valiant employees now, and we've had a chance to get to know people, and just such a great company. And it makes me so happy as a fan to see, that behind the scenes and that commitment and passion. We always like to ask, how did you start reading Valiant, and what Valiant title would you suggest to a new reader? Well,
I started reading Harbinger and Ninjak and Bloodshot. Those were the first three that I came across. I discovered Faith a little after that, and I really loved her. And I was thrilled to be able to work with her. I'm so happy she's one of my characters I get to play with. I would say for a newbie, it depends upon whether I know this person and their tastes, because if they didn't like anything, if they were all into like goth and they liked, Vertigo books, I'd say give them Dr. Mirage or Punk Mambo. But if it's a person who likes superheroes and superhero universes, I would say the Valiant. I would start with the Valiant.
There, yeah.
Perfect choice. I think that's like unanimously like our pick for the go-to book.
That's it's a great way to be introduced to the universe.
Yeah, it's actually how I got started into it as well. I went to the comic shop, told him I was wanting to finally start reading Valiant. I was ready to take the dive. And he said, no better place to start with Valiant than the Valiant. And that's what he held up, was the Valiant trade. And the rest is history on that one.
Yep. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think that's just a testimony to just how good, like, not just how good the Valiant book itself is, but, you're talking earlier about how Valiant's like one big family. I think being a part of the fandom, you kind of get to be, like when we started doing this podcast, for example, we got flooded with, good responses and, you guys sending us stuff and some other podcasts sending us stuff. And I think it's just really good. It's a really cool thing that that you get that vibe at like all levels, whether you're doing a podcast or whether you're actually making the books. Like, that's just such a cool thing. Would you say that's something that is like uniquely Valiant, or
do I think that's something that what?
That would be like uniquely Valiant. Like that's part of the vibe that makes Valiant different from everything else.
It's funny. Valiant fans have the most loyal fans I've ever come across. Really. Yeah, they're amazing. They're amazing. I'm friends with a bunch of them now because I've met them. I've met them and they've come up to me and at panels or at shows. I have one guy that is so wonderful. Every week during this pandemic, he sends me a little note, so, just to kind of say, keep your spirits up, with a little Bloodshot, little Bloodshot, crocheted Bloodshot that his wife makes. They're fabulous. I am blessed and honored to be part of the Valiant family and to have such a response from their fans.
Yeah. That's super cool. And you work with some of like my personal favorite characters, and from Ninjak to Faith. I think that's so cool that you're able to do that and balance that. Are there any characters at Valiant that you kind of have been eyeballing that you'd like to work with still?
Yes, there's a bunch. I'd love to do something with Britannia. I'd love to do something with Eternal Warrior. These are things that I'd like.
Yes, that's so cool. I think we're due for an Eternal Warrior return here.
I think so too.
Definitely not be upset by more Britannia.
Right?
For real. Okay, so going forward into, well, I guess I kind of already answered that because I was. Actually, you know what though? You are the first one to name drop Britannia, so like I think you might be my favorite guest so far.
Yeah,
I love all of you guys. I love all of you guys. But that's like extra bonus points because I absolutely love Britannia. I don't think if we talk about it enough, we should do an episode on it. But I don't know why we haven't yet.
Right.
But anyway, so going forward into 2021, I know it hasn't been confirmed yet, but Harbinger is also supposed to have it.
You're trying to be sneaky again, aren't you?
Maybe.
Well, I'm not an editor of Harbinger, so I wouldn't know anything.
It was worth a try.
We got a lot of these cool previews and promotions kind of, I think it's like the start of the year for the Valiant 2020, where you get there was a Ninjak reveal of the bloody sword that was my phone wallpaper for months and months. It was like we got a lot of those cool announcements, and with the pandemic kind of pushing things and doing some rescheduling and stuff, have you noticed any like shifts in marketing or how you want to promote these series coming out, or is it just kind of a slight delay and then kind of back to business?
Well, I wouldn't be able to answer that really. Yes, I'm sure they have to change marketing because it's not it's not coming out the one it was supposed to come out originally. But just like I said, it just gives us more time to make everything more perfect.
Definitely, and you can't argue with that. I mean,
and so how well All right. How do I word this without being obvious in these? Okay, so with Rye, you said before it even came out, you basically had like the first almost dozen issues ready to go. How far out would you say you have plans for reading it?
I can't answer that.
That's cool because we've talked about, like, we mentioned it with Greg, in that a lot of fans, Valiant fans, are very outspoken. They're very loyal. It's been something that we've noticed, a sentiment of, we want an ongoing series, the XO issue 45, something like that, And is that something that, as an editor, that you approach, or is that done at a higher level than you?
That's a higher level. Unfortunately, because we're such a small company. It comes down to money. And if the book's making money, we can continue it. Book doesn't make enough money, we can't continue it. So I want everybody to run out and pick up Rye, so we can continue it. It's really that simple. I would love for Rye just to go on forever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think either of us would be complaining about that either.
No, absolutely not. I actually work at a comic book shop. Let me do Spiggies. And so for like the last couple weeks now that I know that the Rye Volume 1 has been coming out, I've been like pushing it like crazy. I'm like, look, it's like Mad Max meets Kung Fu, the legend continues, and there's cyborgs and there's samurais and there's mutant people, an alligator gets kicked in the face, So the response has been pretty good. It's so I'm pretty excited about that. I'm really excited about the Volume 1 coming out.
Yeah, I am.
How is that? How is it when you get to like those milestones, when you see like books start going from just individual issues to, okay, now here's Volume 1, now here's Volume 2. Like, that's gotta be like a kind of like a little pat yourself on the back moment.
Well, it is. It's really nice. I love the way Valiant does their trade paperbacks, because pretty much as soon as the run is done, they're going to trade it. So it gives somebody the opportunity. The people who don't want to bring up, read just the floppies, they want to have that trade. They can read it in the trade. It's good for everybody. Plus, it gives me an opportunity. Should I make any mistakes in the run, I could then correct it for the trade. So that's also very nice as well. Having a backup. Not that I make mistakes, but it's nice to have a backup. Yeah, no, I think it's tremendous. I know there are people out there who just won't pick up a comic book. They just won't. They just want to have it as a trade. So it's great that we have that.
Definitely. And I know we're closing in. We're closing in on 45 minutes, but I wanted to pick your brain here, because you're the editor at Bloodshot, and we had just, right before the pandemic happened, you've got Bloodshot hitting the theaters. And you've got a brand new series with Tim Seeley and Brett Booth that's just really magnificent. And I wanted to see, did the movie play any kind of influence with how the series, when released or was marketed? Did you?
Not a bit. They wouldn't even let me read the script. Because they didn't want me to get, they didn't want me to have any preconceived notions or add anything into the storyline that shouldn't be. So I couldn't even read the script before it came out. However, we are introducing some of the characters from the movie into the book. It starts off in Free Comic Book Day, and then it also will be in issue 10. Starting in issue 10 will be the introduction to these characters.
Oh. I'm about to go run laps. I'm so excited for that one.
Yeah. Day made. Okay, so I know you can't tell me, but I'm going to ask anyway.
Okay.
It's totally KT and Wiggins, right? At least Wiggins.
Free Comic Book Day. It's out already. Go look. And
fair enough.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I was just supposed to work today, but I think I might spend
Yeah. So cool. We're closing in on here, a minute left. Is there anything coming up with Valiant that you're super excited about that you can tell us about?
Everything.
Oh, whoa.
I'm very happy my boys are going to be back in the comic book stores in August. So go pick up Bloodshot and Rye, because I miss them. I'm happy to see them.
Perfect.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you, Lisa. It's been fantastic. I mean, wonderful, wonderful information. That last bomb drop, I can't think of anything better to go out on. So yeah, I'm gonna go chase my dog around the house or something for a while. All excited about some of the movie characters getting into the book, and then also Ninjak. Thank you for bringing Ninjak back in this bold new direction. I'm excited. It's one thing to just bring him back. It's another thing to bring him back and say your mind's about to be blown. What we're bringing you.
It's gonna be. It's gotta be blue.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, from the bottom of my heart. And thank you for being with us. And hopefully
Thank you.
Amazing. Yeah. Just thank you for joining us, and I hope to have you back anytime. You're always welcome at Valiant.
Oh, it's my pleasure. I'll come back anytime you want.
Thank
There
you.
you go.
Thank you.
And on that note, we'll catch you next time, guys. Stay valiant.